Good afternoon. We're ready to start our first budget session for FY 2020. And as we get started for this, there are a couple of things that I'd like to run through with you to keep in mind for the next several weeks. For the next today and 3 additional days, we will be looking at the budget and the proposed budget that the mayor and city manager have presented to us. Next week, May the 7th, our meeting starts at 2 o'clock with a 5 o'clock stop time before the 5:30 council meeting. May the 14th, our meeting is approximately noon until 3 o'clock, again after the council meeting. And then on May the 21st, we will start at 9 o'clock and go until 2 o'clock. One of the things that I would like for us to really try to do is to begin and end on time. I think that it's important that we validate the time of the people who are coming before us. And to that end, I'm going to ask the finance director and her staff to be very realistic in the amount of time that you allot to each presenter coming up here. We know that there are some of them that will take longer than others, and let's see if we can't try to stay as close to that as we can. One of the other things that I would like to ask the finance department is that we, the council, have on the by the close of business on the Wednesday before the session and an agenda of which departments are coming to us so that we can have an opportunity to take a look in the proposed budget to see what is there. So for next Tuesday, the 7th, if we could have something by the close of business tomorrow, that would be, I think, would be helpful. And then I'm going to ask the city manager to be very cognizant of the fact that these meetings that we have scheduled are either 3 hours before another meeting or 3 hours after another meeting. So as much as we can to keep the agenda of the regular council meeting fairly concise. I did want to just, again, I know we have one counselor who has not had the opportunity to go through the budget process yet. Councilor House, were you not here the last time? Oh, okay, because I thought you were. You were there. Okay, Councilor House and Councilor Crabb, this is their first opportunity to do this. One of the things that we do that you saw as you observed is that we will be developing what we call the add delete list. That is the list of items that a counselor would like to add to what has been proposed or delete from what has been proposed. We do that, and you may add at any of those meetings, but we don't make a final decision on any of that until the very last meeting so that we can see what all is being proposed. No vote will be taken on any individual item until that last meeting. And in the past, and I'm going to ask again this year, that if you add something to the proposed agenda, to the proposed budget, that increases that department's budget or increases the overall budget, you need to be prepared to tell us where you're going to delete, because we do have to, by ordinance, by charter, have a balanced budget, and that's one of the things that these folks have worked so very diligently to make sure that you have presented to us. Hit your button.
I'm no financier, so I'll get with them. I won't be able to tell you now. I'm no financier, but I do intend to add some things, and I'll get with this young lady here and come up with something. I'm not going to do it at the same time. I want you to know that.
Okay, Bruce, I turned myself off. I don't know. There you go. I practiced yesterday so that I wouldn't embarrass myself with the microphone, but Bruce is my right-hand guy over there. And the last thing that I would remind is, or ask, is that the agenda that I think the agenda that we publish, that the clerk of council publishes, needs to have the departments that are coming before us for the public's identification, just so that if there's someone who may particularly be interested, for example, I don't know, in the Parks and Rec department, that they would know that that's coming up. So if you'll keep those in mind as we go forward with this, I would appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Ms. Alexander, who is our finance director, to get us started. Ms. Alexander.
Well, thank you, Ms. Budget Chair. So this is just, I'm going to try to keep this as quick as possible. I know we've just got out of a pretty lengthy council session here, and this, so just bear with me as I go through these 60-plus slides in a fairly brief time frame. So just starting with the agenda for today's meeting, we're just going, I'll talk very briefly about the budget process. Budget Chair did mention the scheduling to a certain degree. Our next meeting is immediately following, is immediately prior to the proclamation meeting. It starts at 2 p.m. and will end at 5 p.m. This is May 7th. The next scheduled meeting is May 14th. 2019, and that meeting is set to begin at 12 p.m. and scheduled to end at 3 p.m. Of course, this is immediately following the council meeting. And then our last budget review session is May 21st, and that is from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And this is a special call meeting. Hopefully, we will have very limited department presentations on that day so that we can just get right into the add and delete list. On May 28th, we will advertise the FY20 budget as amended by City Council. And we'll also advertise the Taxpayer Bill of Rights for June 4th, if that's necessary. On June 4th, we'll have a Taxpayer Bill of Rights session. That'll be two hearings on June 4th. It'll be 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. The third Taxpayer Bill of Rights session is on June 11th. Again, if that's necessary, that'll be a 9 a.m. meeting. We'll also present the first reading of the millage ordinance, and it'll be the second reading of the budget ordinance, hopefully on June 11th. On June 18th is a special call meeting, and it's just for the second reading of the millage ordinance. So that is our schedule, so to speak. The meeting that was the regularly scheduled council meeting on June 25th will come before council at some point by the clerk to cancel that regularly scheduled council session. So just very quickly, going through the budget process. The budget has to be submitted to council by the mayor no less than 60 days prior to the start of each fiscal year. It includes operating and capital expenditures accompanied by revenue projections. It shall be accompanied with the budget message from the mayor containing any major policy changes, a general summary of the budget itself, and any additional information that's deemed appropriate. We will make public by advertising in the newspaper the budget as amended by City Council, and have hearings for public comment, which is followed up by the budget and millage ordinances and their adoption, which all must be approved by before July 1st. So I just really went over the schedule a moment ago, so I'm not really going to spend much time on this particular side. It just reiterates what I've said previously as far as the meeting times in May and June. So just getting right into the budget itself, the FY20 operating budget is balanced at $282,582,000. $597,030 with no use of fund balance currently. Some of the assumptions in the FY20 budget is no change in the millage rates. The millage rates for this year's upcoming budget will be the same as FY19. That is represented as 17.65 mills in Urban Service District 1, 11.67 mills in Urban Service District 2, and 10.77 mills in Urban Service District number 4. We are hopeful for a 1% increase in the digest at a 97% collection rate, and that's what's been included in the budget. No subsidies to the Integrated Waste Fund or the Civic Center Fund are included. There are subsidies to the E911 Fund and the golf courses. The value of 1 mill being around $5 million of operating. The value of 1 mill for debt service around $5.3 million. Included in this FY20 budget is a cost of living adjustment of 1% for all active employees. That includes full-time and part-time, as well as a 0.5% cost of living adjustment for retirees. This is effective January of 2020. And in addition to the cost of living adjustment, there is a 1% pay increase for all active full-time employees only. This excludes elected officials, and this is for people that were on payroll as of June 30 of 2018. And again, this is effective January 2020. As far as the health insurance is concerned, we will continue our contribution strategy of the 70-30 split for active employees, and the rates remain unchanged for wellness and non-wellness participation. So if you participated in the Wellness Incentive Program for 2019, in order for your rates to remain the same in 2020, your participation in that program is required again in 2020. Shaw Hankins, our benefit consultant, is on the schedule for next week, so they will be the first presentation that you hear about on May 7th. Again, as far as the millage is concerned, Urban Service District 1 will still subject up to the 9 mill cap. The total millage in Urban Service District 1 is 17.65 mills, in Urban Service District 2, 11.67 mills, and Urban Service District 4, 10.77 mills. So this is just a chart that depicts the budget as a whole. As you can see, the general fund makes up about 54% of our total operating budget. The second largest fund that is comprised of our operating budget is the other local option sales tax fund, or the OLOS, and that is at 12.3%, while the paving and medical center funds rounds out the top three at 5.9 and 5.4% respectively. As far as our revenue projections, where does the money come from? This chart just depicts our revenue sources by type. As noted here, most of our revenue is derived from general property taxes, so that's about 1/3 of our operating revenue is from general property taxes, with sales taxes being the second largest source of revenue at 26%. As far as the expenditures in the operating budget, or where does the money go, this chart just shows the expenditures by function. As shown here, public safety represents 36.6% of all operating expenditures, while public works is the second largest category at 10.3%. This chart just depicts the operating budget by personal services or operating. You can see that most of, or almost 54% of our budget is personal services, which is employee salaries and their associated benefits. So that is a big chunk of our, a large part of our total operating budget is for personnel. So for the general fund is balanced at $152,826,962. The general fund just accounts for the normal day-to-day activities such as police, fire, public works, parks and rec, those court functions, And again, it's largely funded by property taxes as well as sales taxes. Included in the recommended budget, as far as the personnel adjustments, to start out with the new or restored positions. The new positions included would be for the state court judges. There was the inclusion of a law clerk, which is a grade 20. The police department, there is an inclusion of a computer forensic analyst, which is a grade 16. This new position is actually budget neutral because it's offset by funding a police officer position. The municipal court judge, there is a new position included for a deputy clerk 2, which is a grade 12. And the tax assessor, this position is actually already, it has been in the budget for several years now. It was in the FY19 budget. Where it's officially listed here because of the premise that was attached to it previously. It is budget neutral, as I mentioned before, because it was funded in the prior year, but we are requesting, it is being recommended that the tax assessor's deputy chief appraiser position be restored. As far as the budget neutral reclassifications included in this budget, in the mayor's office, the executive assistant to the mayor, the salary that was approved by council is changing from $60,000 to $58,000. There's the administrative secretary, G10, being reclassified to administrative assistant, G12. In the city manager's office, the administrative secretary, G10, to administrative assistant, G12. Also in the city manager's office, the CSC coordinator, G14, to a CSC technician, G10. This is a title change only. In the information technology department, there's a full-time data control technician, G12, will be reduced to a part-time data control technician, G12, a network manager, G22E, to a network manager, G22F, GIS technician, G14, to a program and development coordinator, G21, a data control technician, G12, to an office manager, G14, GIS technician, G14, to assistant information technology director, G25. Also, the additional budget neutral reclassifications include inspections and codes, GIS technician, G14, being reduced to GIS technician, G12. Also in inspections and codes, the office manager, G14C, being reclassified to office manager, G14E. In Public Works, there's a correctional detail officer, PS12, being reclassified to assistant facilities maintenance division manager, G19. In Public Works, a part-time volunteer coordinator, G13, being reclassified to a full-time volunteer coordinator, G13. In Fire and EMS, a firefighter EMT, PS14 position being reclassified to a lieutenant inspector, PS18. The municipal court clerk has several reclassifications. The court coordinator going from an 18 to a deputy chief clerk, G21. Senior deputy clerk, G14, to a finance manager, G17. A deputy clerk 2 going to a senior deputy clerk, G14. And then lastly, the senior deputy clerk, G14, to assistant chief deputy clerk, G18. Also in the sheriff's office, there's a deputy sheriff technician, which is a grade 16, going to a sergeant, which is a grade 18. Again, all these reclassifications are budget neutral. But some of the other personnel adjustments that are included in the budget, particularly for Parks and Rec and the outdoor pool staff, is an hourly rate increase. This is just to make sure that the outdoor pool staff receive the same wages as the, or hourly pay as the aquatic center staff. So this is just to bring those positions in line so that there's parity. I will say administratively, this is, probably something we should have looked at sooner. Just because if they have a lifeguard that works at the outdoor pools and that person then goes to the aquatic center, that person has to have 2 payroll records in order for us to accommodate that currently with the different rates of pay. So that is included in the budget. It's not presently budget neutral. But here are the unfunded and deleted positions. This pretty much makes the budget neutral reclassifications. This rounds that out. Within Public Works, there's a Maintenance 1 G7 position being deleted. The Police Department, a police officer position being unfunded. It's no, we're just basically reusing that money for another position, similar to what has been done previously with pay reform. Fire and EMS, there's Administrative Secretary G10 position being deleted, and in the Municipal Court Clerk's Office, the Deputy Clerk G12 position being deleted. As far as capital outlay in the general fund, that rounds out to being close to $900,000, with the internal auditor receiving capital outlay for data analysis software, inspections and codes, receiving $65,000 for 2 replacement SUVs. Engineering, they're replacing a F-250 crew cab truck, as well as a half-ton cargo van with the build-out. In Public Works, that amounts to $284,000 plus dollars for a replacement of a small engine service truck, as well as a Doosan forklift and 3 animal control trucks with equipment. In Parks and Recreation, there's a replacement of 10 inmate vans. In Fire and EMS, there's a mid-size Ford Fusion included. That is actually for the lieutenant inspector position that was part of the reclassifications. Public defenders, $5,500 for computer equipment, as well as the $1 million in capital improvement money that will be allocated for demolitions of blighted properties. So as far as the general fund balance, the estimated projection for FY19 is that we'll end up with about 70.23 days in FY19, about 69.12 days in the FY20. The value of a day for FY19 is about $499,000. The value of a day in FY20 is about $577,000. The stormwater fund is balanced at $5,867,210. The stormwater fund accounts for activities restricted for stormwater and drainage, maintenance of our drainage system, and it is primarily funded by property taxes. The millage rate will remain the same at 1.24 mills in Urban Service District 1 and 0.20 mills in Urban Service District 2. There are no personnel adjustments in the stormwater fund. However, there is capital outlay at $439,644. In engineering, their portion of that capital outlay is to replace a full-size F-150 four-wheel drive crew cab truck, as well as GS-18T rover packages, and an OZ2 camera and transporter. In Public Works, their capital outlay is for a mini hydraulic excavator. This is a replacement item. There are some new as well as replacement zero-turn mowers, an 8x12 utility service barge with a trailer, as well as a skid steer loader with attachments, a portable pipe inspection camera, and the replacement of a 7-yard dump truck, as well as a dual-axle utility trailer. There's also almost $1.4 million included in the stormwater fund for stormwater fund supported CIP projects. In the paving fund, that fund is balanced at $16.6 million. The paving fund accounts for maintenance and improvements to roads and bridges. It is also primarily funded by property taxes. The millage rate remains the same at 3.44 mills in Urban Service District 1 and 0.55 mills in Urban Service District 2. Personnel adjustments in the paving fund include 2 new positions for Public Works in their Community Service Division. These are 2 maintenance workers, G7 positions, as well as reclassifications for Public Works, 2 heavy-duty equipment 2 heavy equipment supervisors, G15, to heavy equipment supervisors, G17, as well as 2 crew supervisors, G15, to heavy equipment supervisors, G17. There's also included a budget neutral reclassification, chemical applications technician, G11, to a contract inspector, G14, as well as capital outlay close to $900,000. For engineering, it's for the replacement of a small bucket truck, metro count traffic counters and tubing. For public works, it includes the replacement of flatbed dump trucks with the 10-foot bodies, asphalt hot box with the infrared asphalt recycler, dual axle utility trailers, some new, some are replacements, zero-turn mowers, as well as zero-turn mowers with baggers. These are all replacements. A grab-all truck, additional flatbed trucks with 12-foot bodies. There are new and replacements, as well as electronic message boards, a trailer-mounted extenuator, a gapple attachment for a loader, which is also a replacement. Included in the paving fund is just over $1.7 million for CIP, and that is to support paving fund capital improvement projects. The medical center fund, the proposed budget is $15,343,646. That includes a $600,000 transfer from the general fund for excess inmate medical expenses. The medical center fund accounts for the funding for indigent hospital care, and it is funded and supported by 3 mills of property taxes. And the integrated waste fund is balanced at $13.27 million. The integrated waste fund accounts for our refuse collection, as well as disposal and recycling and our landfill operations. There's no change in the residential monthly rate. That rate remains at $18 per month. Included in this budget are debt service payments on capital leases for existing equipment, as well as new equipment. The new estimated lease for the new equipment is $235,000. That includes 2 haul trucks, 1 bulldozer, and 2 full-size F-150 trucks, as well as the $1.4 million for our existing leases. That includes a total of 34 garbage trucks, 4 grab-alls, and 1 bulldozer. There's additional capital for equipment of $14,000, as well as $300,000 included for CIP, and that is for our Pine Grove landfill for the permit for our slope design and/or modification. The E911 fund is balanced at $3,959,990. This fund accounts for telephone subscriber surcharges and collection for emergency dispatch. It is funded primarily with landline, wireless, and prepaid phone charges. It also receives a subsidy to support its operations from the other local option sales tax fund. That amount for this year is $939,990. FY19, that subsidy was budgeted at $1.1 million. The reason for the decrease is the change in the revenue projections for prepaid and non-prepaid wireless fees. The state approved increase in FY19 for those fees, and so now all of the fees collected from our telephone subscribers are $1.50 per line, whereas before it was charged at different rates. The state also took on collection of that revenue in January. So I will say that we're still working with the state on getting the reporting that we need as far as who's reporting what revenue. Previously, that was handled in-house by the finance department. But we have seen increases in our prepaid wireless fees. That was previously collected and remitted to us once a year, and now the state is going to remit that to us monthly. The Economic Development Fund is balanced. The budget is $2.4 million. The Economic Development Fund accounts for .50 mils, and it's used for attracting, quality companies, broaden the tax base, and used for job creation and retention. Development Authority receives half of the millage. That amount included currently in the budget is $1.2 million. We have year 5 of the NCR Blue Cross Blue Shield commitment at $800,000, and reserves currently in budget of $400,000. Debt service fund.
Excuse me, let me see if I can do this. Ms. Alexander, the NCR, explain that one to me, if you will. I thought that they had moved on and that they owe us money.
I don't.
Madam Chair, we'll let Deputy City Manager Hodge talk about that.
So there was a 10-year agreement that we have with, through the Development Authority with Synovus Bank, because they borrowed funds as part of the NCR and the Blue Cross Blue Shield agreement. When those two were done, we did one, and then we refinanced to include Blue Cross Blue Shield. So this is part of that initial agreement. There is a separate agreement through the Development Authority that they are working through with NCR for some payback of not the initial project, but there was an expansion project that they did, and I know they're still working through that. But that would be separate from this initial borrowing that was done through a line of credit with Synovus.
Okay, so this is not just the NCR, this is also part of the Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Yes, ma'am.
But we are still, there's a question mark at the end of this, working with the Development Authority for NCR because they did not meet the obligation that they had made to the city when they came in. Is that correct?
Well,
They never got the number of jobs that they had promised and those kinds of things. And they left town, have they not?
Yeah, and I will confirm that, but my understanding is that based on the agreement that the Development Authority had with NCR, that they did meet the terms of that agreement except for the supplemental agreement that they did as far as another expansion. And I think there are some clawback provisions in that agreement. But my understanding is they did meet the initial agreement.
Because they were supposed to come in here with a certain number of jobs, and they fell quite short of that.
And so, Madam Chair, I don't know if you recall, but when the Chair of the Development Authority, Russ Curica, was here and addressed that matter, I think there was a lot of back and forth discussion around the table, and he did indicate, as the Deputy City Manager just said, that they had met the terms of the agreement. But what I'd like to do is get something written. But he did address it from that podium,
Good.
if you recall. And he said that. I don't know that you or any of the council members necessarily agreed, but that was the final, his assessment or their assessment. But I'd like for them to follow up with that in writing, so we'll have it for record.
Thank you. And if you could, in this $800,000, break it out,
Sure.
NCR and Blue Cross,
We'll
just
provide,
just to give us a little more.
we'll
Okay.
provide you a fact sheet on the
Great.
sequence of events.
That would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you. We have a question here. Let me see if I can get
I'm
Bruce.
on. I got you, Madam Chair.
There you go.
Yeah, it's the expansion project, was that the parking garage piece?
The parking lot expansion.
Okay, but
They
everything else?
were adding additional capacity to the facility, and they did expand their parking lot, and there were some clawback provisions in that they are required to pay.
Okay, so that was the only piece we had callback provisions on?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilor Allen.
Thank you, ma'am. Pam, in the information that you provide
that the chair just requested, could you also add in a breakdown of how much the Development Authority pays and how much the city pays towards the 800,000? Or is that all city?
That is, the 800,000 is coming out of the .25 mills that's maintained by the city.
Okay, so are there any costs associated with the NCR project that the Development Authority pays?
We'll provide that on the fact
Okay,
sheet.
great,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
Thank you, Pam. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. The debt service fund is balanced at $14.4 million. The debt service fund accounts for the accumulation and disbursement of principal and interest payments. The millage rate remains unchanged for FY20 as it was in FY19, which was .47 mills. Metro is balanced at $12,882,000. Let me start over. $12,082,485. The Metro Fund accounts for the operations of our public transit system. It is funded by property taxes, federal and state grants, as well as users' service charges and T-SPLOS. There is one new position included in the recommended budget for Metro. It's a transit compliance officer. It's a grade 20, and it is a position that is mandated presently by FTA. There's capital outlay included in the budget of $3.3 million. 1.1 million of that is FTA funded, in which our portion of that is 20%. 80% of that capital outlay will be reimbursed by FTA. And then there is 100% reimbursement of $2.2 million in capital outlay included from T-SPLOS funds. The Trade Center Fund is balanced at $3.2 million. The Trade Center Fund accounts for the operations of that facility. It is primarily funded from event proceeds. It also receives 30% of our beer tax revenue, which amounts to $680,000 for FY20. As well as 1% of our hotel motel tax, which is $650,000 for FY20.
We have a question from Councilor Allen.
Beer tax, the percentage that goes to the Trade Center is
30%.
30%?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The general fund receives the other 70%.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair.
There is one reclassification included in the budget for the Trade Center. It's an event operations supervisor, G15, to event operations manager, G17, as well as $456,000 in capital outlay. The golf courses, the budget for Bull Creek is $1.2 million. It includes $50,000 subsidy from the general fund. The budget for Oxbow Creek is $381,000. And it also includes a general fund subsidy of $150,000.
And neither one of those have increased, correct?
That's correct.
Over last year.
That is correct. It's the same subsidy for several years. The healthcare fund is $23.9 million. And again, we are continuing our 70-30 country. Ooh, sorry. I skipped a fund on my papers here. Civic Center Fund, sorry. $6,015,000 to be exact for the Civic Center Fund. That fund is balanced. This fund accounts for the operations of the facility. It's primarily funded from event proceeds. It also receives hotel motel tax that amounts to $1.3 million for FY20. There's a small amount of capital outlay included in the budget at $132,000, and no general fund subsidy is included for the Civic Center.
Councilor Allen.
Yes, sir.
On the hotel motel tax for the Civic Center, is that a percentage or a set amount?
It's a percentage. They receive 2% of the 8%.
2% of the 8%?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
For the healthcare fund, the budget is $23.9 million. Again, we'll continue our 70-30 contribution strategy for active employees. There are no premium increases for 2020 with the wellness incentive option. And again, those options and sort of how we stand as a whole in regards to our healthcare fund will be presented by our benefits consultant, Shaw Hankins. They'll be at the next budget review session.
And Ms. Alexander, for those employees who would like to be able to catch that presentation, this is going to be done at the May 7th?
Yes, ma'am, at 2 p.m.
At 2, are they going to be first on
They
the
are
agenda?
first on the agenda.
Okay, so that if an employee is not on duty, can look at that 2 o'clock, and if they are, it will be on the website so that they can see what the health consultants are proposing to us. I know that there's always a lot of interest in that piece of it.
Yes,
Just
ma'am.
wanted to make note of that.
Okay. The risk management fund, the budget for FY20 is $4,676,684. The risk management fund accounts for the general liability, vehicle claims, and our workers' compensation claims. The Community Development Block Grant Fund has a budget of $2.1 million, and this accounts for grant monies received from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and this is under their Community Development Block Grant Program. The agency appropriations for FY20 are slightly lower than the agency appropriations for FY19. This is primarily due to a decrease in the rent for the health department, as well as our required payment to our River Valley Regional Commission. That amount that we pay each year is based on population estimates from the Department of Community Affairs, and currently for FY20, that amounts to a little bit less than FY19. Our non-operating funds are funds that are not for the general operations of the government. They are restricted for a specific purpose, but they must be budgeted annually, and each must be maintained in its own separate fund. Our Urban Development Action Grant, or UDAG fund, has a budget of $15,000. Our home program has a budget of $931,546. Our multi-governmental grants has a budget of $4.1 million. Hotel Motel Tax Fund is $5.2 million. Police Forfeiture Fund at $100,000. Our County Drug Abuse Treatment Fund, or our DATE Fund, is $68,000. Metro Drug Task Force Fund is $150,000. Our County Penalty and Assessment Fund has a budget of $1.2 million. Sheriff's Forfeiture Fund, $50,000. Neighborhood Stabilization Program, $550,678. And I do know this may possibly be the last year for that particular fund. Some of the programming that's being done under our CDBG fund is utilizing this Neighborhood Stabilization Program monies. As far as the TADs are concerned, I just want to make sure that we included in the recommended budget the budget for the TADs. That was part of the audit for FY18, was establishing the budget for the TADs. These budgets are based on current revenues that we've received with the anticipation of what we may collect throughout the remainder of this year. So for TAD number 1, which is our Benning Technology Park, that has a budget, establishing a budget of $7,000. TAD number 2, which is 6th Avenue and Liberty District, $30,000. TAD number 3, which is for the Uptown District, $250,000. TAD number 4, which is for 2nd Avenue and City Village, $90,000. TAD number 5, Midtown West, $190,000. TAD number 6, Midtown East, $1,000. And TAD number 7, which is for Midland Commons, $1,000. The Capital Projects Fund, we're establishing a budget of $26.6 million. For T-SPLOS, This is for T-SPLOST discretionary projects, as well as the city's T-SPLOST projects. The budget is $59.1 million. The 1999 SPLOST has a budget of $7.2 million. Our lease purchase program fund, which is the fund that we establish for GMA or any other lease purchase programs, we're just establishing that budget because we do anticipate, and what's also included in the budget are 2 lease purchases, one for the integrated waste fund for that new equipment, and then in the other local option sales tax fund, which I'll get into in a moment.
Ms. Alexander, we do have a question from Councilor Allen.
It's me again. Under the TADs, which ones have an ongoing project in them?
None of the TADs presently have a project.
None of them?
This is just accounting for the revenues that we've received thus far, and what we anticipate we'll collect for the remainder of this year, establishing those collections as next year's budget.
So if there's no project, how are we collecting revenue?
Well, the way the TAD works is we receive our base revenue, and then anything
Right.
above the base, the increment, goes into its own funds for future projects.
Would you give us an example? Use one of these and give us an example of what you're talking about.
What do you mean?
Like number 3, Uptown District, we received $250,000. So is there a project already established, and we're receiving our bar, everything under that, whatever we were receiving on that property, we still receive? So you're saying there is a project and we've received $250,000?
There is no project currently in place under any of the TADs. What we're
So how did we
establishing
get
here
that
is,
250?
these are the revenues that we've received from the tax commissioner's office. We have to segregate the revenues that we receive, that's being paid to the tax commissioner's office from the increases in the tax values for all the properties within the TADs.
So is this $250,000 over and above what we received last year in the entire district?
From the base, there's $250,000 above the base revenue that we receive as a city.
Before the TAD was established?
Before the TAD was established, that's right. The increments are reported in these funds. It's not associated with
Not
any
associated with
project.
any specific project because none of them have been approved by the city?
That is correct, but we have to establish a budget as the auditor recommended with our FY18 audit.
So an example would be, tell me if I'm correct. So we draw the boundaries for a TAD, and we anticipate there's going to be a TAD project someday. No TAD project has occurred, but within those boundaries, 2 or 3 businesses opened or something was constructed. And not associated with a TAD project, it was going to happen anyway. And so there's growth beyond what we would typically collect because there's been 2 or 3 other buildings or businesses in that boundary. And so all that new growth goes to the TAD because we froze it when we established the TAD.
And when we say
And
it
that's how
goes to the TAD, that means that we must spend that money in that TAD. So that $250,000 for Uptown must be spent in the boundary of the Uptown TAD property.
For a project that you decide is worthy or someone comes and presents to you and you approve it, yes. So it's not a TAD project, but it's growth beyond or outside of a TAD project, but within those boundaries.
Okay, I think I'm with you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just say property A in the TAD was not developed, and it became a part of the TAD, and then somebody came in and said, I want to put an ABC grocery store here. Okay, that development on that property is paying extra tax because it was rezoned or because it was now has a business on it. It's a tax at a higher rate, and that extra tax goes into the TAD.
It's as if that property, we were getting $4,000 taxes on that property.
Right.
And now here comes this grocery store, and because it's a new building and a new business, we're now getting $5,000 tax.
it's being
That
reassessed.
$1,000 is what's in
That's
this
right.
money
That's
here.
That's
correct.
it.
It
That's
gets,
correct.
it becomes reassessed. We receive everything under the TAD, and everything over the TAD goes into
That's
this
right.
account.
Waiting for a future request
Gotcha.
associated with the TAD project to make
Okay.
it a but-for situation.
But in your example, as other properties in there are developed, ABC gas station opens. So then the property's reassessed and the extra revenue goes into the.
That's correct.
Okay,
That's
okay.
right.
I just wanted to make
Yes.
sure I
That's
asked this
it.
question purely for the new counselors.
Yeah,
I'm glad you asked that question.
Yes.
It was my understanding that only council-approved CAD projects, the difference between the base and the increase went into these CAD funds.
Well,
That is my understanding.
well, but you're right. In all of those TAD projects that you see up there, TAD number 1 through 7, that money, someone might come and say, for TAD number 1, you got $7,000, I think you should put a sidewalk from here to there. And you can do it for $7,000. Council might decide that that's a project that you want to spend the TAD money on in that TAD to connect something. But that money is going to stay there and it's going to grow until a TAD project comes before you and you approve it.
Yeah, see, that's backwards in my mind. I thought the way it worked was council approved a CAD project within one of these CAD zones, and then after that project was done, then after that project was done, then the additional taxes that were collected from that project that was approved by council, that went into the TAD fund, not prior to the project being approved.
One thing
Let me say this again, because I didn't follow you on that. You might need to repeat it, or,
Okay,
I think what she said was, she didn't think any of this was triggered until we had a TAD project.
well, none of that money is spent until you have a TAD project.
but
But
we're
the
squirreling
taxes-
it away into a TAD and taking it out of the general fund. That's what is kind of confusing to me. Why would we want, I thought the project is what triggered us putting the money into the TAD.
Well,
And one thing I'd like to
Go
really
ahead.
sort of make mention of too is two things. Well, I said one thing, two things, actually. It's the aggregate total of changes within the boundaries. So it's not, I just want to make sure that we're clear that it's not just one particular parcel or one particular project. You know, it's the aggregate change. So you may have some values that went up, you may have some that went down, but if they're in total above that base that was set, that is what's being deposited into the fund. Also, what's being deposited into this fund is our portion as well as the school district portions. We are the custodian of these funds. So the portion of the increment or the increase that would have been given to the school district are in this fund.
So of that 7,000, for example, 40% or 2,800 stays in our fund ultimately.
Right.
And the other, what, 4,800 is the school district's, but we keep it until,
Until there's an approved project.
yeah. Counselor Davis has been anxiously waiting.
Yeah, just keep in mind that when Columbus, the city of Columbus did these TADs, that we didn't do project-specific. Normally, that's how they work. We did geographical boundaries. So that's what you see up there. TAD 1 is a geographical boundary. 2 and 3 are geographical boundaries. Now, like they said, a baseline was established from the tax assessor's office. So any kind of new growth, new development, or whatever that goes in there that changes that base, above that base, goes into an account, and it's held in that account. In theory, if you don't use it, now there's a couple ways you can use it. You can just straight up use it and write a check, right? Or you can leverage it and you can borrow money to do projects. In other words, we take out bonds and use this money to pay off the bonds. But in theory, every year, like you have 250 there, let's just say nothing changes in Uptown, no new development, it stays the same for 1 year. The next year, you'll have 500. You'll have 250 again. So it just keeps on rolling and growing, and the more growth you get, that number changes. So if you get another new project down there and it goes up, that project contributes 100,000 in new property taxes, then you're going to see next year 350,000. Well, actually, you'll see 650,000 because you're going to get another 250. It just goes up every year. It goes into the pot. Now, keep in mind, there's 3 ways that it goes in. One is the way we're talking about. But if you're a nonprofit and you come back on the tax rolls, 100% of that goes into the TAD fund, okay? If you're a city property and it comes back on the tax rolls, then 100% minus debt service. The laws say that you have to pay debt service, so that's what, 0.47?
Mills, 0.47.
47, what you see on there. You have to take that out to pay debt service. The law says you can't use debt service for TAD. So those are the 3 ways that money comes into this TAD fund from the TADs. But like I said, in theory, it grows every year until you use it. And you can only use that money within those boundaries.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
Okay, so,
Oops. Okay, so say there's some heavy development in, the Uptown District. And so that's being built up. And then say, the Uptown District is built out. I mean, we're done developing there and we want to move into another area and start developing it. And so then, but, and say there's a bunch, there's 250 or, 750,000 in the Uptown District, that we can't use those funds anymore because we're not developing it out anymore.
We can use those funds. We can use those funds in the district, in that TAD property area. For example, we could use it to repair the sewer system.
Okay, so we can
Okay.
use it for maintenance. It doesn't have to be a bill.
Or we can dissolve the TAD district. At some point down the line, if we want to, if we, as council, isn't that correct? That we can say we no longer wish to have an Uptown district, TAD district, and we disband it, then future year money will not be restricted to being used in that area.
Okay, and so those funds would come back into general fund?
Right.
And then is that a resolution that council has to, if we were to disband a TAD, I mean, then council we would vote on a resolution to disband that TAD?
Or a resolution to disband, and then it would be as if there never had been one.
Okay, okay. Thank you for the instructions on TADs.
Any other on this?
You can dissolve it as long as there's not a bonded project ongoing, yeah.
Councilor Davis?
Maybe it'd be helpful, could staff get us I want to say,
Refresher.
well, a term sheet, basically, and how you can use the money. I know we always talk about infrastructure, but, what by law and the definition of law, what actually can you do? Is terms okay? Is that a okay word?
That's okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
I have a question from Mr. Huff.
To add to that list, could you have a basis point for us of each TAD as far as the taxes that belong to us each year where we max out when we did the TAD? That we're going to collect $2 million from this TAD, and above that point, all that money goes into the TAD? What our basis point is what I'm saying.
You want to know what the
Meaning
baseline
here-
is?
Here where you say that we're going to get
Okay.
$7,000 from the Benning Technology Park.
That's for
What's
like
our
3
basis
years.
point? So we're 7,000 above our basis point.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
So,
And
I think
that the Benning Park was established in
No.
2000, yada, yada, whatever. We
Got
did
it.
that. Thank you.
so what you're asking for is for TAD 1 through 7, you want to know what we collected in each of those TADs.
When it was established,
When it was established, and what we were collecting at the time it was established, and then what the growth
Where are we
is.
now?
Yeah, where are we now? Okay.
yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Alexander.
All right. Columbus Building Authority Lease Revenue Bond Series 2003A, the budget is $650,000. 2003 Series B, $4.3 million. 2010B, $40,000. 2010C, $40,000. We anticipate we'll be able to close up the 2010 bonds in FY20. So hopefully after FY20, we won't have a budget in those bond funds. We will utilize all of the funding. The Family and Youth Coalition Fund has an estimated budget of $50,000. So in the other local option sales tax fund, that is currently balanced without the use of fund balance at $34,845,000. The OLOS fund, as we refer to it, is a sub-fund of the general fund, and it accounts for 70%, which is allocated to public safety, and 30%, which is allocated to infrastructure. Current personnel, current and ongoing personnel in the OLOS fund, as far as public safety is concerned, the police department has 12 sergeants, 14 corporals, 84 officer positions, and 9 E911 technicians. The fire department has 20 firefighters. Muskogee County Prison, 4 correctional officers and 1 sergeant. The marshal has 5 marshal deputies. The sheriff's office currently has 13 deputy officers, 2 sergeants, 9 correctional officers, and 2 lieutenants. The crime prevention director is funded out of the OLOS. The solicitor general has 2 assistant solicitor generals and 1 deputy clerk 2. The district attorney has 2 assistant district attorneys. The clerk of superior court has 1 deputy clerk 2. Recorder's court has 2 deputy clerk 2 positions. Municipal court clerk has a senior deputy clerk and 1 deputy clerk 2 position. The probate court has 1 deputy clerk 2, and also included in personal services is our annual supplement for all sworn public safety officers of $3,121. This excludes elected officials. Also included in the OLOS public safety budget, E911 subsidy of $939,990. 800 megahertz radio system upgrade, also referred to as our Motorola MAP contract. We're in year 5 of 10 of that, and that's $842,000. The siren maintenance, which is also a part of the MAP program, at $104,000. We're in year 4 of 9. Crime prevention grants are included at $750,000. That's $132,000 for our court management system upgrade, our wired Ethernet to wireless microwave replacement at $687. The Motorola radio upgrade, this is new. Council approved this back in October of 2018. That is included in the budget at $1,646,969, and this is the first year of a 3-year commitment. The transfer to debt service amounts to $1.3 million. Very small amount of that for the 2010 Series A and B bonds. Most of the debt service relates to our GMA leases. which 2 were established in FY16 for the fire department. There was 1 fire truck, 4 ambulances. There were 3 leases for FY17 for fire and EMS, which was for 5 fire trucks, a total of 9 fire trucks, 2 ambulances, and then our most recent lease was for 30 pursuit vehicles for the police department. That was approved in FY19. Additional capital outlay
Hold
beyond.
just a moment, if you will. Councilor Huff.
Yeah, you're going at a good pace, so I didn't want to slow you down. If I could back you up to the OLOS on public safety on the radio system upgrades.
Yes.
Did I read in the budget material that we are buying new radios for the police department, and then we're passing the others on until a future date?
It's not just police, it's all of public safety.
All the public
And
safety is getting new radios?
That's correct.
And then we'll pass the others on to the rest of
To
general
the general
government?
government.
Okay, okay. I just want to make sure I understood. Thank you.
Yes. So additional capital included in the budget, which includes a new capital lease. The total capital amount, $531,690. That's the value of the capital outlay. That includes 25 pursuit vehicles for the police department through the capital lease program, 40 sets of personal protective equipment for fire and EMS, as well as a staffing module for emergency reporting. We're in year 2 of 3 of that. Council approved that in the budget at the request of fire and EMS for the FY19 budget. There's 1 pursuit vehicle included for the marshal, 10 pursuit vehicles included for the sheriff's office, as well as year 3 of 4, the allocation for the inmate video visitation system upgrade. In OLOS infrastructure, for roads and bridges, we've included $1.4 million. Flood abatement and stormwater projects is $300,000. Technology improvements, a little bit more than $900,000. This is for the core switch. We're in the last year of that particular project. $250,000 for computer equipment, and then a constituent work order system upgrade. That's primarily, is used throughout the government, but primarily through our 311 Citizen Service Center. Facility improvements at $750,000. Debt service for OLOS infrastructure at $6.8 million. This includes all of the bonds, the 2010 Series A, B, and C bonds, as well as the most recent bond that was issued back in 2018 for the government center improvements, as well as 2 GMA leases for the tax assessor IAS World software upgrade. This is actually the last year for that particular funding for that particular project, as well as associated computer equipment for that project. And then the OLOS infrastructure allocation for the Motorola MAP, or the 800 megahertz radio system upgrade, at $260,000. T-SPLOS, discretionary projects funding at $3.4 million. That includes $2.5 million anticipated revenue for FY20, $300 in carryover funds, and a $600,000 reallocation. And additional project information will be discussed during the FY20 transportation update, which is directly following this presentation. So, are there any other questions?
Ms. Alexander, I want to tell you that you finished 60 slides in about 60 minutes, so that was pretty good, a minute a slide, plus all the conversation that went around the table, so great job.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, I'm turning it over to Deputy City
We
Manager.
have one
Pam
question,
Hodges.
however. Councilor House.
Well, it's a 2-part question, and kind of an overview thing. The 1% pay raise for employees and the $1 million in demolition, those are kind of new. We didn't have them last year. Were there any particular bill payers in an overall sense that, or is revenue just up? So we had the money to cover it?
We had about $2 million in new revenue.
New revenue? Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
And Ms. Alexander, it was, wasn't it 2%?
It was, yes, a total of 2%.
Right.
Can I go?
And Ms. Crab, Councilor Crab.
Thank you. Okay, this is a lot of numbers here. So is there something on here that I missed? Was there any line item for facilities maintenance?
Well, the OLOS infrastructure has $750,000 for facility improvements, but facility maintenance budget is primarily within the general fund. It's within the budget of Public Works. Also, I want to make mention that the binders that you have has a thumb drive in it. All of the departmental budget submissions are on that thumb drive, as well as a detailed by line item budget for the operating budget. So you could go to, you could access that thumb drive and look at the line item budget of Public Works and see the amounts that are included for facilities maintenance.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alexander. And it looks like we're going to have Deputy City Manager Hodge at this point.
Angelica. Good afternoon. I have 8 slides, so I'm going for 8 minutes. How about that? So this is just the FY20 transportation projects, and the allocations are in the budget. What I'm going to go over is the specific projects that we're planning for FY20. And if you have any questions, feel free to stop. What I also provided you was the T-SPLOST spreadsheet, which shows all the projects that's been funded since we started the T-SPLOST in FY13 and how those have been allocated throughout the year. So we'll go through that specifically. Just to give you a quick update, these are the projects that have been completed recently, both the Riverwalk projects at Bibb Mill and City Mills, the Follow Me Trail Bridge, Martin Luther King Jr. Trail and resurfacing. We still have a few things left to complete on that project. It's substantially complete. The Double Churches Park, the parking lot, Forest Road Phase 1, and the Decatur Street, Boxwood Boulevard, and Melrose Street bridges. Those have been completed. Projects that we're currently working on is the Fort Benning Streetscapes, which is Shelby to the Gate, the Brennan Road, Fort Benning Road Roundabout, and the streetscapes from Casita Road to Shelby, the River Road Roundabout, the Meredith Mills Drainage Project, Williams Road, Fortson Road Roundabout, the Buena Vista Road Spiderweb Project, Casita Road I-85 Interchange, the Diverging Diamond at 185 and Buena Vista Road, Mott's Green renovation, the bridges at Reese Road, Clarendon Avenue, Benning Drive, and Calumet Drive, Winton Road Streetscapes, and the Victory Drive 30th Avenue signal. So those are ongoing projects. So these are the projects that we've included in the FY20 budget. Resurfacing at just over $2.5 million. The replacement of the Morris Road Bridge at $1.5 million. The trail extension, another $900,000 for the next segment. We're working with the Friends Group and the Path Foundation to determine which section will be next. Fortson Road, Williams Road Roundabout, that would be the construction for that project. The Levy Road cul-de-sac at $200,000. The design on the old Double Churches Road. This is currently a dirt road, so designing that so we can pave that particular section. We also have funding to do studies for South Lumpkin streetscapes as well as Brennan Road streetscapes. On Brennan Road, this would continue us from the roundabout that's currently under construction up to the Spiderweb project. So that will connect that whole section. The pavement management system, we update that every 5 years. So this is the year to update and evaluate all of the roads in Columbus. That's $400,000. And then we have allocations for ADA accessibility at parks, ADA accessibility and new sidewalks, guardrails, the fiber interconnect for all of our signals, as well as traffic calming projects.
If you'll hold just a minute, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, ma'am.
Pam, did you by chance have the amount that we paid for Forest Road? One project.
I have the construction number, but this wouldn't be the total. This would be the, construction contract was just under 7 million, but we would have had design and right-of-way in addition to that.
Okay, if you can get me the full amount.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilor Allen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pam, on the traffic calming device, is that 100,000 budgeted for this year?
This would be the FY20 allocation for traffic calming. And I think everyone thinks traffic calming as speed bumps. That's not necessarily, we're looking at other alternatives for traffic calming. And
At some point, could we have a briefing on what that entails? Because I don't know about other councilors, but I get requests for speed tables. And,
Every week.
yeah,
That seems to be.
so it's, yeah.
yeah, I think the engineering director at one point had a presentation that she did before council, and it talked about doing other things besides speed bumps, bulb outs at intersections, some kind of cul-de-sac type things in the middle of intersections that slow down traffic. So we'll come back and provide that information to council on alternatives to speed bumps, because we are having some issues with the ones that we do have in specific locations with them coming loose and not necessarily holding up maintenance-wise. So we're looking at other alternatives for that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilor House?
Well, I actually had two questions. One was define what you're going to do on traffic calming, but
Okay.
you're going to come back on that one. The other one is the approach to the bridge on Reese Road. That's not part of a T-SPOS project, I guess. We're paying that out of something else.
The Reese Road,
Or is it on here?
yes, is already a funded project,
Under here.
but it wasn't
Okay.
it was not a T-SPOS discretionary project, but
Okay.
it is a funded project, and
Okay.
design is underway with that one. We hope to have it out to bid by the end of the summer and construction start by the end of the year.
Okay, thank you.
So I just wanted to go through the SPLOST spreadsheet with you. One more slide, just the total for the FY20 budget is just over 8 million. Paving fund, OLOST infrastructure, the LMIG allocation for FY20, as well as T-SPLOST discretionary. So we accumulate different funding sources in order to leverage those to do projects for the upcoming fiscal year. So this is just, again, the T-SPLOST discretionary spreadsheet, which shows the projects that have been done from the beginning of the collection. And I will point out a couple things on this. We did budget for the Salmon Road signal in FY16 when GDOT advised us that that was not a viable signal. That was reallocated back to resurfacing. We are evaluating that particular intersection again. GDOT has agreed to do traffic counts at that intersection again, so this might come back into play, and we'll budget those funds for the Salmon Road signal. So we are still looking at that. The other thing I would point out on the back side of this sheet is on the MLK Trail, we had several different funding sources that we used for that particular project. We only used 100,000 of the T-SPLOST discretionary for that project. So we're reallocating 600,000 of that to this year's project to make it the 900,000 for this year. So that's where it's a reallocation of funds, since that particular project and the trail is completed. We'll now use this funding for alternative transportation, either to connect MLK to Lake Bottom or MLK to the river. We're still working through those two projects. And then at the bottom, if you see at the bottom at the end of FY20, we anticipate having a little over 1.3 million left into those particular categories that council had determined that we would allocate T-SPLOST discretionary between bridges, alternative transportation, road improvements. And so those are the categories that will have funding left at the end of this fiscal year. And then you can see moving forward, we'll have about, through the end of the T-SPLOST discretionary, about 6.7 million that can be allocated to road projects.
Ms. Hodge, I have a question that I've been asked several times. I know that River Road is a state road, but as you go north on River Road, almost to the Harris County line, they're doing something out there, looks like, with around some of the creeks that are out there. Is that one of ours, or is that a state project?
That
And
is
do you know
a-
what that is?
That is a state project that they're adding some more passing lanes.
Adding passing lanes?
Yes, on River Road.
Any other questions for Ms. Hodge? Councilor Huff?
On the Spiderweb project, are we streetscaping down toward Aflac, going back toward Lake Bottom on that side for bike trails and walking?
The
Yeah.
project limits will not go all the way to Buena Vista Road. It will just be around the Spiderweb project.
Okay,
But it is being designed for trail extensions off of the Spiderweb so that we'll already have that portion designed all the way to Winton Road,
Winton.
all the way down Buena Vista.
Yeah, I was asking because you said you had 600,000 being reallocated, and they said we would be a little short or something on trying to finish that piece, because originally we talked about it, but they said it was not funded for that piece, but they had like a trail,
Right.
biking trail, walking trail from the Spiderweb down to Winton.
That's
Winton area.
correct.
Okay.
And we're still looking at that. It doesn't appear that we will have the funds in the Spiderweb project to do that. But once we go out to bid for the Spiderweb project, we'll have a better sense of how much additional funding would be required to do that, and that's something that we can consider.
Okay, because we were hoping that we could probably get it done while we were tearing up things one time.
So you're talking about from the Spiderweb back up to Winton at 13th?
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah, that initially was on our list of projects, but
Right.
we didn't have a funding source, and we couldn't connect the two projects.
Okay.
We couldn't connect that to the Spiderweb.
Okay.
But,
Okay. Check into it for me, please.
yeah. But now, and of course, you done mentioned Bull Creek, but you're going to replace that bridge
Yes.
right, at Bull Creek right there. And then you're going to put some signal arms at the Buena Vista, Brennan.
Yes, we're going to replace the signals at that intersection as well.
They have the string signals, and you'll have the black arms that overhang.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the Bull Creek Bridge will be done, and then, of course, the bridge over the railroad track.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Other questions or comments for Ms. Hodge? Nope, we're not quite ready, I think. We've got one more.
All right, and so our final
But
presentation.
Ms. Hodge, I think you did do very well on the 8 minutes. I thought it was good.
So our final presentation today will be made by our Clerk of Council, Sandra Davis.
Thank you, Angelica. What I will be presenting today are requests that were not included in the proposed budget. For the Clerk of Council's office, the budget request for FY 2020 is to reclassify an administrative secretary to a deputy clerk 2, administrative secretary step increases from step A to 10A to 10C, and to retain a temporary part-time position at a grade 9A. The justification for the reclassification is due to the implementation of new processes within the clerk's office, increase in tasks and responsibilities within the clerk's office, as well as change of duties that are more in line with a second-tier deputy clerk.
Just, if you'll excuse me just a minute, Mayor Pro Tem?
Ms. Davis, can you tell them whether or not these job descriptions were sent through the University of Georgia, State?
Did they go to the UGA?
The reclassification request
Yes.
did go before, was sent to Columbus State University, so they did review it. And they did recommend a grade 12.
Grade
As
12
far-
for the deputy clerk? Which one?
Yes, for the administrative secretary position, they did recommend a grade 12. The administrative secretary position going to, I think they named it administrative tech, going to a 12, a 12A.
Secretary to a deputy 2?
Yes, that's correct, Counselor Allen.
And University of Georgia recommended a 12.
Columbus State University, yes.
I'm sorry,
recommended a
Columbus State.
12. Yes,
But you're asking for a 13.
yes. Yes.
Okay, that's not on here, is it?
Was there
As far as,
recommendation,
I'm sorry.
Hold a minute. Mayor Pro Tem.
was there recommendations prior to the restructuring in the office? That's been done now.
Was that recommendation made prior to the restructuring in the office?
Yes, it was.
And
Yes, it
and
was.
we've not
So since
had
that
a-
time, there have been additional duties assigned to it, so. So it was sent prior to all of the duties that I'm requesting that this reclassification assume.
Okay, if you will, while we're waiting on the budget process to take place, can you go back to HR and get them to resend that with an updated job description, please?
Mayor Pro Tem, I sure will.
Thank you. Counselor Allen.
I was just trying to get a picture of the number of employees you have. I think you have a clerk, a deputy clerk, and then 2 part-time.
Have 2 administrative secretaries, 1 is part-time.
Okay.
And then, I'm sorry.
Are there a total of
Yes,
4
yes.
employees?
I believe Counselor Allen did mention the deputy clerk of council.
Okay, so, all right, I'm trying to think back to when our committee was together. It seemed like there were 2 a deputy and a deputy clerk, and then 2 part-time. And now the structure is a deputy clerk, and, I'm sorry, a clerk and a deputy clerk, and a full-time secretary,
Right.
and a
then
part-time
part-time one.
secretary.
That is
So there's
correct.
still a total of 4,
Still a total of 4.
but 1 has shifted to full-time.
No, that one would remain, the reclassification request one is going to remain part-time. The one that I'm requesting go to a deputy clerk 2,
No,
that one would
I-
remain part-time.
I don't think I'm asking it right.
Okay.
You had 2 full-time and 2 part-time initially, probably before you came. And now the restructure is 1 part-time and 3 full-time. So did one of the part-time go full-time?
I'm sorry, it's the clerk, the deputy clerk, and 1 administrative secretary that's full-time. And then there's 1 administrative secretary that's part-time.
I got that.
And that, okay,
But
So you only have 4 employees in your office?
that is correct.
I understood 4 initially, maybe before you came.
Okay.
2 were part-time. So I don't know when.
I do currently have a temporary part-time.
There
Counselor,
was, okay.
Counselor
temporary.
Allen,
I apologize. It was a temporary. You're
I
right.
have a temporary part-time
I
employee.
apologize.
Yes,
Okay.
currently. And that one is not included in this budget as well, the temporary part-time.
So the temporary would give you a total of 5.
The temporary would give me a total of 5.
Okay, do you plan to still use the temporary?
Yes. Yes. And that's due in part to the backlog as far as the contracts and things of that nature. So
Okay.
that is a very tedious, and it's going to be a long process. And that's part of the reason I utilize that temporary part-time for.
Okay.
Because as we continue to assume our regular duties, I still need someone to address the backlog as well.
And we appreciate you doing that because we understand the necessity of catching up.
Yes, sir.
A lot of it has been completed, but we're still working to get it
Oh,
back to
yes.
where it should be.
And
the-
where the snag is coming in a little bit is
Sure.
determining the expiration dates of those contracts and also determining whether they're still active. And then once we make that determination, we'll be able to get them on a retention schedule and move some of those records to the record center. That's the big holdup with that process, determining whether they're active or expired.
Okay. The other question I had was regarding the need for the salary increases. It seems to me with the new systems that you discussed earlier today, that would give us the ability to have less of a manual process, if you will. And
Councilor Allen, it would appear that that would cause us to have a less of a need, but in actuality, it does not. The implementation of the agenda management software is still someone is still going to have to input the information in order for it to generate, and a lot of the processes is still going to require an individual to actually go in and input the information in there in order to get the final results of what we're searching for.
Okay, well, I was not under the impression that there was still a manual process with the new system. I thought there was some automation that would help you input the information. What you're saying is you're having to type out the information that you're recording, and then somebody's having to input that into the MuniCode system or the Muni system.
Well,
And
what happens is that in the agenda management software, what happens is the documents are uploaded into the management software system. What it does is pull the agenda. So when you are prepared to do the minutes, you still have to input who voted yay, who voted nay. You still have to go in, and in our cases, we have referrals. Someone has to still go in and input referrals and things of that nature. So what it does is help pull the actual agenda and form the minutes from the agenda. So that's the main process that system does.
In the essence of time, let me just come
Okay.
out of your office and get with you, and you can walk me through it.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, Councilor Allen.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I was going to suggest that Gary and I get together and go meet with Sandra.
Okay. All right.
Because as I understand it, some of these jobs were supposed to have been upgraded 2 years ago for the clerks, and they did not receive any kind of increase. So we'll do that.
Councilor Barnes.
And just put me on that agenda, because I've got a little bit confused in all the translation. I know you all have a monumental job, but I'd just like to know the procedures. I know it's time-consuming,
Right.
but I'd just like to know, piggyback off of what
Right. And I
what
did.
Gary said.
Thank you, Councilor Barnes. I did just want to briefly mention that as part of records management, we are moving towards electronic files. And so I'm asking the administrative secretary, the one I'm asking for reclassification, Ms. Colbert, I'm asking that she transfer files electronically. So we're trying to move towards that as much as possible.
Ms. Davis, we have Councilor Huff.
Yes, Madam Clerk, thank you for the presentation. Add me to the list, and I want to let Gary and the Mayor Pro Tem know that I'm the third wheel now. I was the one to replace Councilor Baker. Okay, let me know and I'll meet you. Okay, thank you.
Councilor House.
Is this the appropriate place to discuss that difference in the 19 and 20 budgets that you and I talked about, Madam Chairman, about how the travel and?
Why don't we let her move on a little bit?
Okay, all right.
Okay. And as I mentioned, the position would remain part-time. The maximum hours for a part-time employee is 29. So her current hourly salary is $13.44, which the dollar amount coincides with the number of years she has worked for the City of Columbus. She'll actually be 14 years in with the City of Columbus as of July. I'm proposing her hourly salary go to $16.08. The annual salary will not be more than $24,248.64, according to my calculations, because this salary does not include any benefits. As a part-time employee, she does not have any benefits. I just listed some of the new job responsibilities that I have implemented for this position. Assumes the duties of the Deputy Clerk of Council and/or Administrative Secretary in his or her absence, files, execute contracts, and provides a monthly report of contracts and agreements that have not been returned to the Clerk's office for filing, assists with agenda preparation, prepares electronic files for council meetings. She will attend council meetings as needed, prepares and transcribes the budget review minutes, as she is present here today. And she has been assigned 2 line items from the clerk's operating budget. What I mean by that is that I want all of the employees to be well-rounded with respect to the budget. And so as myself and the deputy clerk continue to oversee the entire budget, clerk's budget, I have assigned Ms. Colbert 2 line items to oversee. And what it is she is to let me know whenever that line item becomes halfway depleted. So in that manner, we would know that we need to cut back on spending and kind of watch those dollars a little bit. This is just my way of making sure that they get familiar with budget management. As far as the administrative secretary, the full-time administrative secretary, I'm requesting an increase in step from grade 10A to grade 10C. This is an annual increase of $1,467.16. And I believe HR provided, or either finance, provided this dollar amount, because this would include the benefits of that should be a comma there, 1,708. The additional duties for the secretary, administrative secretary, recording and scanning all past contracts, and I kind of briefly touched on the tremendous task that is for her. Researching to determine contract expiration, applying the retention schedule to those contracts, and she has been assigned 1 line item to oversee in the clerk's budget. The temporary part-time employee, I'm requesting to retain the temporary part-time employee at a grade 9. Hours per week would be 25, and the annual salary would be no more than $16,328.
Ms. Davis, if you'll hold just a minute. Mr. City Manager, do I recall that a temporary employee can serve a set amount of time before they either have to be made permanent or?
Well, they can serve as long as you would like them to serve for years as part-time, but they are limited to not more than 29 hours a week.
Okay. So we can have a temporary part-time person
Yeah.
that's not necessarily temporary.
Well, you can authorize her department, division, any department, part-time staff, and they could be carried as part-time year after year and not work more than 29 hours per week.
Well, no, I'm talking about this one that she has termed as a temporary.
Oh, in this case, the city manager can authorize up to 6 months
That's what I was thinking.
and then can renew it for another 6 months, but temporary, typically, the city manager will authorize for 6 months to give it a chance to get into the budget and through the budget process. And if it somehow, 6 months falls before you're able to get it to the budget process, then I can renew for another 6 months.
How
But there
long
has to be
this
funding
person been
somewhere.
there?
If I'm not mistaken, Madam Budget Chair, this person came on board.
I think this person was authorized when we went through the,
The reorg?
through the-
yes,
Right.
and we did the part-time, I believe, to allow them to get through that process. And so when the audit was done and you went through whatever you were dealing with is when that part-time person was authorized.
And
Temporary.
My concern is with the temporariness of this. If this should be a temporary person, or if this should be a regular part-time person.
I think what she's asking for is a part-time, to take the temporary off and make it a part-time employee. Is that what you're asking for? You want this person to remain for the next 3, 5 years or longer as a part-time employee? Or you want them just for?
Typically, a temp would be there because you had a specific job that would be over in 6 months.
That's right. I'm trying to figure what she's at. Are you asking for someone to get you through this electronic filing and then it will go away? Or are you asking for a permanent part-time person?
I originally was asking for a temporary part-time, but as the budget chair described, I believe I am going to need this person more long-term.
Long-term, yeah. So it would not be then referred to as a temporary part-time employee. It would be a permanent part-time employee,
That's correct.
is what you're asking for.
Okay. Counselor Crabb.
And I also, she needs to anticipate Lindsay being out for maternity leave, too. So I would say that this should not be temporary. I think they're going to need somebody there.
Well, if she's filling in for somebody on maternity leave, it is temporary. It's the temporary
Okay.
as long as they're out on
Yeah.
maternity leave.
Okay?
Yeah.
I see that, okay.
Yeah. I just want us to make sure that we're using the correct terminology because it does make a difference.
It does.
To the employee as well as to HR and to everybody else, so.
You're correct. You're correct.
So what you are asking for then, let's see if we can get this,
Okay.
is to reclass the admin secretary to a deputy clerk, to move a part-time, temporary part-time position to a regular part-time.
Correct.
Okay. And then to do the step increase for the admin secretary.
That is correct.
Okay. Got it, I think. Counselor Allen.
Well, that's what I was trying to get clarification on. It seems like I saw the temporary part-time employee at an annual salary of $16,328. And what does that
Yes,
break down?
that dollar amount would remain the same. If
That's a
I'm-
grade 9A, right?
That is correct.
And that's 29 hour, 20, I guess 25 hours a week.
25.
Okay.
And just one point of clarification on the amount listed for the temporary and part-time, the grade 9A does not include benefits. It doesn't include FICA. So the actual amount is $17,577.
Would you repeat that amount?
$17,577. That's 25 hours a week. And the reclassification of the part-time admin secretary, it's listed as a deputy clerk too. CSU recommended administrative technician as the title. It's a grade 12. The deputy clerk too is a grade 12, but the title is administrative technician, grade 12. That was a recommendation from Columbus State University.
My only hesitation with that, with the title of the position, is that with that title, I cannot ask Ms. Colbert to do the type of duties that I would be needing her to do, and that she has already started to assume at that title. That was my concern with it.
So you're going to have 2 deputy clerks.
Yes, sir. One would be part-time. And this one will be like a second-tier deputy clerk. That one would not be on the same level as my current deputy clerk.
So the deputy clerk 2 would be part-time.
Yes.
I-
It would not be on the same level as the deputy clerk. But-
I'm not comfortable with that, Sandra,
Okay.
basically because of the message it sends across the city that we're giving somebody a title that, in the city, that is a part-time person. Now, I don't know that that is the right step to take. You're putting me in an awkward position.
Okay.
I hope we could work something else out with this title.
Okay.
Does the person
But-
has no benefits, is that right?
That is correct.
I don't recall this happening before. I'm just,
And I don't either,
Yeah.
Counselor Allen. I don't
This
recall it
is
happening
unusual.
before, but this one would be part-time. But as I stated, the type of duties that I would be asking her to do are that going to be, I just feel like as an administrative secretary or administrative tech, that she would, in my opinion, is still working way beyond what those titles provide. And so I just felt like
in my mind, it may be good for you and the the clerk of council committee to sit down and talk and maybe talk this out
Okay.
before we come back to council and,
And you may want to include the HR
yeah.
director to make sure that we cover all of those HR issues.
Yeah, and I would certainly recommend that as we're speaking about it right now, so I hope that you will include the HR director.
Yeah.
because as a deputy clerk, there are certain things that she would be able to do that she would not be able to titled as an administrative tech. If during the time that the current deputy clerk is out, she will be able to assume a lot of those duties and things of that nature that she wouldn't be able to do. If for some reason I'm not available, she will be able to do some of those things.
Councilor Ball, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just trying to think of when you would not be available or when the deputy clerk would not be available.
Well,
Yeah, but that's only going to be a certain timeline. She'll be coming back to work. I mean, I don't know that it's justifying, for that period of time, you're justifying an elevation in status and also an elevation in salary. And just for let's say 90 days or 6 months or whatever it is. It's, I just, I'm not aware of that happening, and certainly in the corporate community, but I think it's something the committee needs to talk about.
Councilman Barnes.
I have the utmost confidence, what Judy was saying, I have the utmost confidence in Retha. Let me put some old age wisdom on this thing here, Sandra. Shakespeare said, "A rose by any other name still smells as sweet." So I know Retha will be able to come up with some type of a title that would, see she's shaking her head, that would be able to placate the council here and still encapsulate the duties that you want done. Because we all realize up here what a monumental job, what a, first of all, transition that you stepped into. And we all realize the obstacles and the amount of work. And there is a committee. So I know Retha will come up with a title that this person will be able to have. I have the utmost confidence in her many years of human resource experience to come up with a title that will encapsulate exactly what you want. Remember that what I just said, rose by any other name still smells as sweet. No matter what you call a rose, it's going to smell sweet. Thank you, Retha.
Ms. Davis, I want to thank you for, this is your first time appearing before council in this budget session, and you've done a heck of a job. But what I do think would be helpful to us is if you and the committee and Ms. Hollowell meet,
Yes.
reschedule a time for you to come back to us and make this presentation, and we'll get all of this put together. Does that work for you?
That sounds great.
Okay. And I do, as I said, I do want to thank you. I know this is your first time, and sometimes it's a little daunting to be in that position, but we do appreciate that. And I know that the Mayor Pro Tem will make sure that everything goes right, won't you, Mayor Pro Tem? Yeah, yeah. So Councilor Huff, Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Allen, Ms. Hollowell, you, and if there's someone else that needs to be in that meeting, Mr. City Manager?
Well, the HR director will consult the city attorney's office, and Lucy is talking with her now, so I think she'll
If Lucy
be.
needs to be in that meeting, I think that'll be fine with everybody concerned. We just want to make sure that we get it right.
Yes, yes,
So-
I understand.
So, okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay?
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Ms. Alexander, how are we doing? We did have a question, yes. Council, I don't know at what point, I had sort of thought, Ms. Alexander, since the clerk's office works with the city council and the mayor's office, if there are questions on the city council budget or on the mayor's budget, when would be the appropriate time to deal with those?
Oh, well, I mean, the mayor's office handles their own budget, but the clerk is responsible for the clerk's budget and council's budget. If you have questions concerning the budget for council, I mean, now would be the
Well, one of the
opportunity.
questions that, as Councilor House and I were looking at the detailed budget, the FY 2019 adopted budget for travel, schools, and conferences was $3,000. For 2020, that has been increased to $10,000. And we were curious about what is this extra $7,000 for?
Well, Matt,
Councilor Huff, Counselor Huff has asked to speak.
if you don't mind.
Well, and I was going to suggest that you
Yeah.
speak.
I had a conversation with the mayor that I've been paying my way for the last 5 years now, going to conferences to represent the city. And I didn't think it was fair to continue the process. So he went in to take a look at it to say that anybody up here could take a look at using up to a couple of $1,000 if you want to go on the inner city trip, if you want to go to ACCG, GMA, and then the council as a body would share that pool of monies based on travel. Because, like I said, I've been paying out of pocket, I say, since 2013 or so.
Well, I know that at one point, council made a conscientious decision to zero out that fund except for the required travel and training. And, you know.
Yeah. Because I served on the board of ACCG, on the board of managers for 5 years, and I had to pay my way not only to the conferences, but to 3 other board meetings a year. And I
Wow.
did that for 5 years.
And of course, this year, we did have 2 counselors to go to training, and they did not have the money to cover. Is that right, that training?
No, that was included in the budget for 19.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
But in the process, the
We had
conversation.
5,000 in the budget for training.
okay.
Yeah, the conversation the mayor and I had was, some of us look at training differently. Some of us pick it up here locally. Some of us have friends to call. Some of us talk to the state delegation. And me, my nerdy self, I like to sit in class. And I told him I was sitting when we had the TABT deal to come up with the taxes, tags and things. And once it was explained here, I was able to sit in a session at the conference that I went to, and they laid it all out. So I was pretty well on top of things when I got back. So I kind of use it as an educational deal. And I made a suggestion at the conference I just returned from of them possibly having a video type setting in their office. If we couldn't make a particular session, that we could come by and pay, sit and view and get updated.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Part of that travel budget should also include Lindsay going to get her work on her certification.
Not out of the city council budget.
I think it's all one travel budget,
No,
isn't
no.
it? It's separated out.
Yeah, separate.
It's separated.
Well, and so
And I go to GLA.
they're separate, but I think that's, the increase came as an opportunity for council members to go to ACCG, GMA, or if there's training or something else you need to do. That's how I got there.
Councilor House, that answers the question. I don't know.
That answers the question. And I assume the membership dues and fees kind of has the same argument, because that also went up. Not as much, but it went up.
No, now that is
That's
for
different.
those are the annual dues that we pay to ACCG and GMA.
So they raised the amount?
They raise the amount.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And that's based on, is it population, I
They
think?
changed the
They have a
formula.
Yeah,
formula.
they have a
that-
formula for that, so,
Okay.
yeah.
All right,
Okay.
good, thank you.
We were just curious.
Okay. All right.
Anything else for the good of the order? Counselor, Mayor Pro Tem.
I was gonna tell you about the dues. Almost 3 years, GMA kept their dues at the same rate. And they're going up next year, but it's not a lot.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? Motion to adjourn, is there a second? All those in favor say aye. And we're adjourned.